Andy, how you doing today? I want to talk about Amazon success. And what's really cool is we actually have a lot of sellers in our network who are doing $1 million a year. We talk about this a lot on the podcast. We have over 120. What's the number right now? Do you know the actual count? 120 to 130 $1 million sellers that are part of the Amazon seller tribe. And I mean, you just don't get that a lot of places. A lot of times, I like to celebrate all levels of success, but just to get that many people who have hit the $1 million mark, I remember back when I first started selling, just getting to $1 million was kind of like the pinnacle, and nobody did that. Like very, very few did it. And if you did, you were a legend. Now we have people joining the tribe, and within a few months, 6 to 12 months, we have people hitting $1 million. And the stories that come out of that are just inspiring. Everybody has their own unique story, and there's so many different backgrounds and people hitting $1 million status in different ways. I want to talk about some of those and help others who are listening just realize, because for me, when I listen to whatever it is, right? Maybe investment advice or career advice or just business opportunities, I like to think in my head, okay, that sounds great for that person, but how does that apply to me? Because this person's way different from me. And what I love about the tribe is there's people from all walks of life. So you kind of get a little bit of everyone, every background. And I know you appreciate that. You tell your story often that your background was not anything special in business, and you were able to make this work. So I want to hear from you, maybe some of the most inspiring stories that you've heard, and then we'll tie that to how our listeners could then look at how that could apply to their own story and some of the best practices that we've taken away from it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, they hear that, and I'm not even sure how they process that mentally when you hear, we have 130 members in our group who sell $1 million a year on the Amazon.com platform. It almost seems like too good to be true, right? And when you hear that, you don't understand or realize so much of that growth that we see from those sellers has come from the community, right, of our Amazon seller tribe, which, you and I know are super appreciative, super thankful in the work that we do with Gary and with Gay, because honestly, our life was changed by the message of hearing about selling on Amazon. And, again, so thankful that we've now been able to create a group that shares that message, but then even goes deeper and coaches folks, right? So we share the message, hey, look, selling on Amazon's an amazing opportunity. And now we have a program that coaches people on how you get to that 250,000, 500,000, 750, and $1 million. So 130 members that we currently have now sell $1 million a year. That's an insane number when you compare it to all the small business opportunities that are out there. So if you buy a Subway franchise, again, you're going to pay $250,000 probably upfront, or you're taking a loan. In the average Subway franchise, the gross revenue is like $500,000 to $600,000. We have folks, and we're going to talk about them today, who come in the Amazon seller tribe in very low investment right up front. They go through the Tribe 8 coaching, which, by the way, our coaching, we open up 2 times a year. Right now, it is opened until August 15th, and then we close it and you can't get in it. But we have folks that come in through our coaching, and they go from $0 to $1 million within a year of gross revenue. And it has happened time and time again, just like folks we're going to talk about. So we actually just did a feature article in our Amazing Freedom Insider magazine on Paul and Jill Miller, right, Nate? We just interviewed them. And I think even, we knew that they were doing well. But even when you and I were interviewing them, I think we were both like, wow, we didn't know they were doing that well.
What would you have guessed their sales were, just kind of knowing them? I mean, nothing against Paul and Jill. They're very intelligent, but they seem like just low key and average. Like they're not like showboating anything. So what would you have guessed their sales were?
Yeah. Coming in the interview, I thought like 1.8 million, probably to $2 million a year.
And what did they say they're doing last year?
They did over 4 million.
And that's all arbitrage, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, Paul and Jill, I mean, what's cool about them is their background's similar to yours as far as, I mean, Paul was a teacher, right?
Yeah. In education, and never really had kind of a side business, and was actually very nervous, I think, about just initially selling on Amazon.
So so Paul and Jill, they've been selling for a few years, right? But they did this as like a side hustle, which is a lot of people listening, I think. And maybe that's one group of people listening. When I started Amazon, I was working a full-time job. I was going to school. You started Amazon as a side hustle while you had a full-time job. That's probably going to be most people who are getting ready to sell on Amazon they have some type of full-time income. And we've been talking about like our freedom plan the last couple months here. And it's a loose thing that we talk about, but Andy and I try to basically, it's like a roadmap that we use for what we want to do over the next 20, 30 years. And one of those is building a cash flowing business. And that basically was super important to both of us starting out. Because if you don't have the security, it's hard. It's hard to make a leap. And even for entrepreneurs that are a little bit more risky, like if you don't have that guaranteed cash flow coming in, it can be tough. And I think that's one of the things that Tribe helps people the most with is the cash flow. Because we talk a lot about building brand and equity. And we love that. And that's obviously where some of the big bucks can be made. But until you have that cash flow coming in, that can be tough. So, Paul and Jill, I mean, what did you see from then, I guess, that stood out to you, to anyone else?
I mean, what amazes me is they did $4 million out of their basement. So, they were acquiring all of this inventory.
Can you imagine that? What would you, I mean, so your basement, you're not paying any overhead, any rent. I mean, could you do that still? Can most people do that just out of their house, out of their garage?
If you have the willingness, and the grit and the hustle, absolutely. They're proof positive